Debt has become normal. Many people think if you are in debt, that is just part of everyday living. And we've started looking at whether or not we can make the payments rather than what is the entire amount going to cost us by the time that it's over. Today, we are going to talk about ways that I have stayed out of debt in different areas of my life and some of the things that I practice day to day to remain debt free. USA Facts, which is a agency that analyzes data from the Federal Reserve Agency, says that as of 2022, only about 26% of Americans had 100,000 in their retirement 401ks or in savings. That is about what I retired with. However, I get told often that's not enough. But as you just heard, only about 26% of Americans even have that much. But yet, many people will tell you that's not enough. If you don't know me, I am Bonita. I am from rural Kansas. I retired early at the end of October. I am 58 years old and I don't have a pension or anything else like that. I do have a small YouTube income and a small TikTok income. I have a small income from some property investment, and that is what I live on month to month, and I don't touch my savings. So I'm here to tell you today that your dollar has more power than we give it credit. As humans, we are unique and we are able to reason. We have strong will and we can change our perception of things. So even if we think debt is normal, it is still possible to change that perception to help ourselves. So I am medical debt free. I raised 6 kids. 4 kids had braces, of which I paid for. I put all 6 through 4 years of college. Raising 6 kids was not always easy. In fact, I remember a time when they were in school that I said we were t-shirt poor because everything they were involved in required us buying another t-shirt. Field trips, band day, pep band, basketball, volleyball, track, forensics, everything they were involved in, you had to get a matching t-shirt every single year. And every time I turned around, I was having to pay another $10 or $12 per kid for another t-shirt that year. There were different things I did when I raised them to save money and to remain debt free. There were times that either I or my kids would maybe get told we had to have physical therapy. And everyone may not agree with this, but as a nursing home administrator, we also did this for the residents who didn't qualify for Medicare and couldn't afford to get the physical therapy. We would go into the therapist, ask them to assess us, to give us a treatment plan, go over that treatment plan with us, have us practice those exercises on the first visit, and then they would discharge us and we would go home and we would do those exercises independently. And that kept us from having to pay physical therapy visits, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week for 6 or 8 weeks. And that's one of the tricks that we used to not have all of that extra medical debt. And there's lots of tricks like that that you can do. We also did a lot of frugal birthday parties. And when I look back to my birthday parties growing up, maybe my grandparents were invited, my adult brothers would be invited, and my parents. That was it. When my kids grew up, once they got to be about fourth or fifth grade, they could have someone spend the night. We always had family birthday parties. There wasn't a bouncy house. There wasn't a destination birthday party at an event place. We had them at our house. I made their cakes and their presents were simple. They picked their own supper that we made that day. Sometimes we would pitch tents in the yard and they could stay out there with their friends. We'd have a weenie roast when they turned 13 and have a bigger party for them. Their first purchased cake ever was their 8th grade graduation, and then their high school graduation and their college graduation. When my youngest turned 18, I had a full-time job, and then we also owned our own business, of which my husband worked there for 7.5 years, and we just let any profits we had roll into our savings account, and I earned the living for the family. I was gone a lot of hours because I would work full-time, and then I would go and help at our business in the evenings and on the weekends. And we decided to make his 18th birthday special that we would celebrate it every single day of the week. And so we just did little things every day of the week to make his coming of age special. We had balloons that we put all over the outside of his bedroom door one day. We had a scavenger hunt on his birthday for his birthday presents, of which I wrote clues, and he had to find his own presents on our property, which he still says was so much fun. I wrote with that paint that you can write on windows on the back of his farm truck that all the kids drove back and forth to school, that said, "Honk, it's my birthday week." So everyone was honking at him. One day I filled the cab full of balloons. Another day I put his picture on the toilet seat, and when he lifted it to go, it had his picture and it said happy birthday that I also had written with that window paint. We just did things like that that made every day special. And those things were low cost, but they were still exciting. And every day he woke up wondering what we were going to do today. But none of them were expensive, but they were all fun, and we all giggled about them and still talk about that week today. Family traditions are yours to decide, but we hear from so many people about all these destination parties, and there used to be a few when I was younger. They used to consist of going to the skating rink and paying like your 50 cents and skating for an hour or two with someone if you got to go to the party. And I did get to go to a couple of those. But they don't have to be these huge, extravagant things, because we find that when we start that every year, it has to be bigger and better than the year before, which ends up being more expensive. Sometimes just working from our own imagination can make things more unique and more exciting than they would have ever been if we just purchased something for someone. People remember those experiences more than they remember things. Could he remember what he got for birthday on his 18th birthday? Probably not, but he will not forget the scavenger hunt. Debt has become so normal in our day and age, and car loans were started in about 1919 by General Motors because they weren't selling enough cars. It was taking people too long to save up the money to buy a car. So they came up with these car loans and with interest, and they were able to boost their sales. This is what a lot of places do today. They sell you things on credit to boost their sales. And it's now being said that many of them make more money off of the interest than the product that they actually sold the person. So if we stop and think about, is it really worth the money? If we had the money, would we sit down and just fork it over? Would we write a check for it? Or would we say, no, that's a lot of money to just hand over, and I want to look for something less expensive? I think if we looked at that credit as actual money, I think that we might take pause and think about whether or not we really want to sign away this many years of our life for this item. So, changing our perspective is a big part of staying debt free. Finding joy in everyday life and not looking for things that always cost us money. There are ways for us to find joy without spending money to buy that joy for a few minutes. We can create daily frugal habits that save us money. For instance, just substituting maybe something in the kitchen if you're running low. I have been shocked at how much baking powder costs. And baking powder is so cheap to substitute if you don't have it, rather than buying that expensive little box of baking powder. Did you know 1 teaspoon of baking powder, all you have to substitute is a half of a teaspoon of cream of tartar and a fourth of a teaspoon of baking soda? If you don't have baking powder, you can substitute with those 2 items if you have them. Now, I have quite a bit of cream of tartar because it's one of those things you buy and then you just don't use it that often. But I use a lot of baking powder, so that's a way for me to substitute without buying that extra expensive container of baking powder if I don't have it. And that's just a few of the tricks that I use in the kitchen. I substitute if I don't have something with things that I already have. And we can do that all through our house, whether it has to do with things that we use day to day. There's usually some other thing we can use in the place of whatever we need to get by until we can either work it into our budget or we can find another way to do it. There's so many ways to substitute. We just think that certain things are to be used for certain things, and we get that mindset that I need baking powder, and we don't even think about the fact that we might be able to substitute a couple of ingredients we have on our spice shelf instead. So, creating those frugal habits, like looking for substitutes, can save you a lot of money and can keep you from buying something maybe on that credit card that you could get by without right now. Working on projects around your house that are free or low cost is another great way to save money. I think a lot of us have extra gallons of paint or partial gallons of paint sitting around, and sometimes our house maybe just needs a refresh or needs a wall painted. And just picking up little things like that that we already have sitting around the house and using them before they go bad can sometimes keep us from going out and spending money. I bought a mismatched gallon of paint again the other day from Home Depot. Now, I only buy the mismatched paints and I check them when I need a gallon and then I just choose from the colors that they have. And I picked a light beige color so I can do some walls in one of the rooms. And that gallon cost me $15. Well, I remember when a gallon really did cost us $15, but now it's double that. But I was able to get that gallon for $15. I can do several rooms and I'll probably still have a half of a gallon left. So don't forget those half gallons of paint sitting around and a lot of those things that we have already at our fingertips, but we forget about them and we just run out to the home supply store and we pick up something else because we're ready to do a project. But many times we have things we can do those projects with around our house already. We've just forgotten about them. And then pick frugal outings and things that are low cost to have a good time. For the 4th of July this year, my husband and I went to the water park. Now, this is the third time I've gone this summer. It's $5.25 to get in. We stayed about 4 hours and had a really great time. I thought the park would be smack full of people. We had the whole place to ourselves. There was hardly anybody there. In fact, I was the first person to stick my toes in the pool. We had our choice of lounge chairs. The weather was perfect and we laid out all day. Then we went to one of the local towns that's about 20 miles away and watched fireworks for free. And people were shooting them all around us. So any direction you looked, there were fireworks going off. So a very low cost, fun, relaxing day. And if we just learn to look for things like this that we can do that are low cost or fun, we don't feel like we're missing out on anything. And those days are really special. And again, we're having experiences that make memories. I don't know how many times that day my husband said, "This has been a really good day." And the final tip is to tell ourselves that we have enough. I have a little homework for you. Tell me the top 3 things that are the most important to you. I can almost bet they're not going to be things. They're not going to be your car, your house. They're going to be things like my three are time, freedom, and family. Those are my top most important things. Some people will put health in there as one of their top things. There are so many things that are important to us that are not things. And remembering to focus on those sometimes can help us change our perspective. So I hope this video has been helpful to you. I'm so thankful for all of you for being here today, and I hope to see you in the next video. If this video has brought you any value, please give me a big thumbs up.